So Larry, have you been able to speak to Wayne Tinkle about anything that's happened in the last 24 hours? Just anything?
No, I sent him a text this morning, but I slept through the end of the game, so didn't know it took place till this morning. So it's good. I think what, the 11-4 or something like that. So he's doing a heck of a job there. People are excited in Beaverville, and really happy for him.
Oh, just as a quick follow-up, you know, do you kind of think this is a good opportunity for you guys, or were you hoping maybe for, you know, 2 conference unbeatens to meet on Saturday?
It doesn't change. I'm not thinking about Saturday. We got a game Thursday, so the last thing on my mind is what's going on in Arizona. It's studying a lot of film on Arizona State, and we're going to be their first home game. They haven't played at home yet, so we're going to have our hands full Thursday night, and I'm not too concerned about any of the other storylines with Saturday until we get to that point.
Along those lines, do you consciously talk to your guys about not looking ahead, or does the preparation for Thursday speak for itself?
Yeah, I think that's more of the same. Everything that we've been doing, you know, we'll blend with a short turnaround playing afternoon game on Saturday. You can't not talk about Arizona at some point and build some of those things into our practice. So we're not dodging it completely, but certainly 90% of what you work on in practice is probably going to be Thursday's opponent, and maybe 10% Saturday, and that's consistent regardless of who it is you're playing. You know, might tweak it a little bit if you have, you know, maybe a big zone team on Saturday and, you know, and no zone on Thursday. Well, obviously you're probably going to have to play a little bit more if there's a major component that you need to cover. But for the most part, it's pretty consistent with where we're heading here, Kurt.
And let's talk Arizona State without a Bashinsky there now. It's a little different. That's a, I think, completely different team now that they don't have that big shot blocker in the middle. And
it changes, yeah, it changes. You know, the Jacobson's a really good post player for them. He's a kid that's made a lot of strides from one year to the next, as much of a jump, probably production, as you can hope for out of a kid. Sometimes people, you know, don't. But I think he's been the recipient maybe of losing some of those guys. He's the person stepping into those minutes, and he's a nice post player, back to the basket post player, probably a better back to the basket offensive player than Big Bashinsky was. Certainly not going to impact the game maybe defensively in the same manner that he did. But, you know, most of the teams in our league are different teams. It's, you know, the dynamic of teams change, you know, pretty significantly from one year to the next. When you look at UCLA and USC, and, you know, Colorado was pretty consistent. They didn't play with Dinwiddie for a while, so it wasn't like all of a sudden he's going to the NBA and you're looking at a team without him. But for the most part, you know, the faces, Arizona, you know, they lost some guys, but they still have some similar faces. So teams, I think, change as you move along, and different sets of challenges that we'll be facing from going in there.
Coach, I understand the point about, you know, you only focus on what you can control. You don't worry too much about what other people think. You're not looking ahead too far, just one game at a time. But especially with younger players, that's got to be hard for them to really zero in on, and especially like this week where you've got your first road trip with going up against what's currently the last place team in the Pac-12, followed up by Arizona. Specifically, what are some of the things that you try to do to help the players focus on the next game and to put some of these outside forces out of their mind?
You know, it's really interesting. I hoped maybe for a few years that I was going to get to talk about it from a little different perspective, but we've tried to build culture. That's the big buzzword when you take over a basketball program. Any coach that gets hired, you're going to read about it in NFL football. It's always about changing the culture. And sometimes that can be a little bit confusing, and a word I think you rely on without really dissecting it and diving into it. And we've spent, over the last couple of years now, we've talked a lot about our culture and trying to build our program, building habits. And you can look, you can go on Google and check out culture, and there's millions and millions of definitions. And for us, we've kind of identified it pretty simple. The Cliff Notes is who we are, the type of people that we are, the type of people that we recruit. That's a big factor. And then the second part of it is how we do things around here. And I think we know we've got a nice boost with the new facility, the practice facility, so that puts an exclamation point on the here part of it. But how we do things around it hasn't changed in 3.5 years. We do the same exact thing, and we try to prepare for practice, and we try to have a good practice plan laid out. And I don't think you do anything differently if your team starts to achieve a little bit of success. You know, you build championship habits when you're winning 6 games, and you build championship habits if you've won 15 or however many, 13, however many we've won up to this point. So the formula is not going to change. We don't approach it any differently. If you come into our practice this afternoon, which we wouldn't let you, no, just kidding, you wouldn't be able to tell if it was 3 years ago and we were winning 6 games, or if it's right now where maybe we're in a little different position than we're used to being. Our players aren't going to change, and we're not going to approach practice. We're not going to do anything differently. So it's really easy. I was hoping that that I could talk about that someday, because there were years where we weren't winning a lot of games, and we were still talking about trying to build championship habits and trying to build a championship culture, and that hasn't changed. So it's not like all of a sudden we need to recreate the wheel and do something differently and start acting differently, because it's the theme that we've been talking about for years now, and the difference is we got some different players that are living it, but again, I think the consistency is the most important thing, so that's what we rely on a lot.
Getting to your comment about, you know, who we are, and you even mentioned the type of players we recruit. You seem to have a very cohesive unit here with players with a lot of the same traits. What are some of the things that you specifically look for in recruiting a player besides just raw talent?
Well, it's character. It's I think that can be the difference in some games. You know, character is going to shine through, and we've got a bunch of nice guys, really nice, genuinely nice guys, you know, not taking the basketball court into account. You know, people that have come from all different walks of life. We got a little international flavor. We've got some Southern California. We've got some Utah. We love the diversity of our squad, and I think we really enjoy the differences. We don't expect everybody to be like us, and we've done an awful lot of training with leadership. And with Navy SEALs training, and we talk about it daily. It's not something that we give them a manual and just you poof, all of a sudden you're going to do it, but it's something we build into our practice plans. You do it on a daily basis, and you talk about lessons and different things that are important to us. So when we recruit kids, and you're not going to be perfect with it, but I told our staff, and you can ask any of our assistants, the very first thing when we were assembled as a group of coaches, and I'll use the exact quote. I said, "We're guys, it's, you know, welcome, blah, blah, blah. It's nice to all be together. For the very first thing, we're not going to recruit any turds." That's what I said. I just, this job is really hard as it is, and you know, there's a lot of challenges basketball-wise, but I feel strongly that you start with somebody of some higher character. Not that people aren't going to make mistakes. You're supposed to do that when you're 18, 20 years old, and that's where we come in to help them. But we weren't willing to sacrifice maybe the supreme, ultimate athlete and somebody that wasn't going to fit in with the rest of the group.